I wanted herb markers in the garden. Not complicated, pointed stakes so they push into the soil, flat flag at the top for the label, maybe a bit of detail on the face to make them look like they belong in a proper kitchen garden, rather than something knocked out in 5 minutes. I could have spent 2 hours in Fusion 360, setting up the sketches, doing the extrusions, getting the loft right on the stake taper, adding fillets. I've done it 100 times on other projects. I know exactly how long it takes. Instead, I wrote a product spec, 11 lines, dimensions, features, tolerances, and I gave it to Claude. What happened next is what this video is about, and I'm going to show you the good bits and the bad bits, because they were both. 60mm wide, 30 tall, 3 thick for the flag. 8x8mm stake, 8mm long, tapering to a point over the last 15. Embossed border, recessed label area, 1.5mm fillets on all corners. 4 named parameters, so the whole thing is adjustable. A bit of background before we get into the build. In April 2026, Anthropic launched something called Claude for Creative Work, a set of connectors that let Claude actually drive desktop applications rather than just describe what to do in them. One of those connectors is for Autodesk Fusion 360. Here's what that means in practice. A product spec goes in, a printed herb marker comes out. Here's what happens in between, including the 2 things that went wrong. 11 lines, dimensions, features, tolerances. That is the entire input. Claude reads it, reasons about the geometry, plans every operation. The MCP connector sends those operations to Fusion Live. Sketches appear. Extrusions run. When we suppress the loft to fix a later problem, Fusion silently dropped the border and recess. First print came off with a flat face. Claude read the timeline, rebuilt both features from scratch. Clean STL, watertight, ready for the slicer. Stake down orientation, 0.15 layers, enabled supports. The tip was a mathematical point. 0 area, slicer couldn't start. 1 message, blunted to 1 by 1mm flat. Fixed. V2 prints clean, border, recess, flat tip. 3 problems, 3 fixes, tested, not just generated. This is the build in real time. I've compressed it. The full session ran about 2 hours, including my own thinking time, but every operation you see here was done by Claude through the MCP connector. I didn't touch Fusion once. Flag body first. 60 by 30mm rectangle, extruded 3mm. You can see it appear in the viewport. Then the stake. 8 by 8 square profile, 65mm straight, then a loft to a point for the last 15. That taper is the bit that causes problems later. More on that in a minute. 4 named user parameters set up at the start. Flag width, flag height, stake length, border width. This is what I mean by parametric. Every dimension is driven by these 4 values. Change flag width from 60 to 80, everything downstream updates, the border, the recess, the fillets. It's not just a model, it's a template for every herb in the garden. Border next. 2mm inset from the flag edge, 2mm wide, 1mm raised. Claude sketches 2 concentric rectangles on the flag top, face and extrudes the strip between them. Then the label recess, 40 by 20mm, 0.5 mm deep, centred on the flag. That's where you write the herb name, paint pen, chalk marker, vinyl, whatever you prefer. Fillets last, 1.5mm on all external edges. This is where the API runs into a Fusion limitation. Fusion's fillet engine won't apply uniform radius across every edge in one pass when there's complex loft geometry involved. The stake tip and the border corner create conflicts. Claude tries it, gets an error, and falls back to targeted fillets. Flag perimeter, flag corners. The stake edges stay sharp. That's not a Claude failure, that's a Fusion constraint, and it matters less than you'd think because the stake goes underground. Model's done, watertight. I export the STL, load it into Bamboo Studio, and I get this. Empty initial layer. The reason is that the stake tip is a mathematically perfect point. 0 area. The slicer looks at the first layer and there is literally nothing there to print. It doesn't know what to do with it. This is not something Claude anticipated. It built exactly what I specified. A stake tapering to a point. That's what I asked for. The slicer problem is a consequence of the geometry being geometrically correct. So I told Claude what the error was. One message. It suppressed the original loft, created a new construction plane at the tip, drew a 1x1mm square, relofted from the 8x8 base down to the flat square, and re-exported the STL. I didn't open Fusion. I described the problem, it fixed the geometry. That's the workflow. That's what agentic actually means in practice. Not a script you paste and hope for the best, a conversation. First print comes off the bed and there's something wrong. Look at this. Got a flat bed. No border, no label recess, just a plain rectangle. Here's what happened, and this is the bit they don't show you in the demos. When Claude suppressed the original loft to fix the stake tip, Fusion cascaded that suppression downstream through the feature timeline. The border emboss and the recess cut were built on top of geometry that no longer existed. Fusion dropped them, silently. No error, no warning. They just weren't there. The model looked fine from the outside. Watertight correct bounding box, healthy feature list. But the detail was gone. I went back to Claude. It read the feature timeline, identified the broken references, deleted the corrupted features, and rebuilt the border and recess, fresh against the correct geometry. New STL second print. This is a known Fusion behaviour, by the way. Suppress a feature mid-timeline and anything downstream that references its geometry can drop. It's not specific to AI-driven CAD. I've done this to myself manually more times than I'd like to admit. The difference here is that I caught it on the print rather than in the model. Lesson: always verify face geometry after a fix, not just the feature health indicator. Version 2 STL into Bamboo Studio. Stake pointing down, that's deliberate. The supports added during the splice ensure the marker does not fall over without adding significantly to the build. 0.15mm layer height, fine enough to capture the 0.5mm recess cleanly, that's 3 layers deep. 20% gyroid infill, 3 walls on the perimeter. The stake needs to survive being pushed into soil repeatedly. A small point here about the material choice. PLA is highly popular for planters, seed trays and small hand tools. However, it is biodegradable and temperature sensitive, meaning the markers have a limited life. Not an issue for this project, but something you may wish to consider if you want something longer term. Second print. Just over an hour on the bamboo with those settings. You can see the stake building up first, then the flag layers coming in. That's the border emboss appearing at the 3mm mark. Recess cut just above it. This is what 2 iterations get you. The border is clean and you can feel it with your thumbnail. The label recess is exactly 0.5mm deep, which is enough to hold a paint pen line or a small vinyl cut without it peeling. The stake tip is a 1x1mm flat rather than a true point, which means the slicer is happy, and in practice it still pushes into the soil without any resistance. And the whole thing is parametric. If I wanted a wider marker for rosemary, I change one number, flag width 80mm, everything else follows. Paint pen for now. The basil variant with raised letters is already designed and printed. That's the next video. 3 problems, 3 fixes. Let me be straight about what worked and what didn't. The Fusion MCP connector is real and it works. For a model like this, simple parametric geometry, no assemblies, no tight tolerances, it saved me roughly 9 minutes of manual CAD across the 2 iterations combined. That's genuine time saved, not estimated. The cascade dropout is the most important lesson. Claude fixed what I told it to fix. It didn't anticipate the downstream consequence because I didn't tell it to check. That's on me as much as it's on the technology. The workflow needs a verification step after any mid-timeline fix. Check the face geometry, not just the feature list. The fillet limitation is a Fusion constraint, not a Claude one. Any experienced Fusion user will recognise it. You can't always fillet everything in one pass. Claude handled it the same way I would have, by falling back to targeted edge selection. The honest bottom line, for a simple parametric body, agentic CAD works today. For complex assemblies, tight tolerances or anything where the geometry is fighting itself, it's not there yet. The technology is 4 weeks old. Give it time. What it doesn't do is hide the problems. Every error in this video happened, got diagnosed and got fixed in the open. That's what tested means, not just generated. Files are in the shop, link below. STL and Fusion 360 source files so you can adjust the parameters yourself. If you want to set up the Fusion MCP connector, there's a link to the Autodesk setup guide in the description. It takes about 10 minutes to configure and it's free on any Claude plan. Next video, the basil marker with raised letters in a contrasting filament colour, printed on the bamboo with AMS. 2 colour, no pausing, no filament swap. That one's already on the printer. Subscribe if you want to see where this goes.